It's Do Time with Pastor Steph.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Rise and shine. You're on with this Due Time with Pastor Steph. How are you this morning? That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. For this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So, where were you last week? Last week we started off shaking the Monday morning blues with the Due Time crew. And I want to highlight the switch with Shantice. The topic, be careful what you feed. Oh my goodness. Again, another practical switch tip that took us through the entire week. We talked about all of the baby showers and gender reveals that just ended up really showing how selfish we are. Yeah, really indicate how selfish we are, feeding that nasty arrogance and conceit and self-centeredness, and going right along with the scripture that says in these times people will be lovers of themselves. People don't want to listen to nobody. People don't want to follow instruction. People don't want to do anything but what they want to do. And when they want to have these gender reveals and these baby showers, they want the biggest gifts. Excuse me, no matter what kind of advice you give, they want to do it their way. And a lot of people are being turned off. The more and more I talk to people, the more and more I hear that all of these events are not going quite as well as people think they are. It may look like people are attending and things like that, but that's people who are like them. That ain't got nothing to do with the rest of the world. So be careful what you feed. And like I said, for the rest of the week, that seemed to be the theme. Now, on Tuesday, we did a segment of My Two Cents as we reviewed Ruth and Boaz, the Netflix movie. That was a biblical story, followed after the biblical story. And actually, wasn't much different. It was a pleasant surprise to actually watch the movie. They gave it a modern day twist. And interesting part is they left out the same thing everybody else leaves out. Yeah. So you want to go back and, kind of follow the review and see whether you want to click it or kick it. Nah, you never know. Yeah, it was a full cast. It was Brother Ainsley, Shantice, myself, Pastor Vinny, Pastor KL. Yeah, we all are in on this My Two Cents. So we're going to be doing that a little more often. And I got a lot of nice reviews on it. So we're going to find a lot of, Christian movies to end up reviewing. And we're going to see whether it's worth really looking at or not. All right. Well, wow, Wednesday rolled around and we got to our socially conscious segment, and we talked about the mother who had all those children, but yet a 5-year-old child got away from the group as they were left home alone to fend for themselves, as she was out committing robberies. Yes. And when asked about her motherhood, she said, I don't have any children. Boy, we have really stooped to some lows of the lows. Again, be careful of what you feed. What is the most important thing? Being a parent or being out here committing robberies? Now, somebody might say, in order for her to take care of them kids, she had to commit the robberies. And I say having kids was voluntary. Yes, We put ourselves in a lot of situations in this life. All of us. There's not one of us who have not put ourselves in a situation, and then we looking at God trying to, ask God, well, what happened? How you gonna get me out of this? Or what am I gonna do? And this is definitely one of those times where, listen, having all of these children, 8 children, because 7 of them were left at home while the 5-year-old was in the parking lot of the laundromat. Yes. So, it's be careful of what you feed. If you're feeding that need of loneliness and, low self-esteem and want, and, how many women have said, I want a baby who's just going to love me. You got to love that child first. That child ain't coming out loving you before you need to love it. So no, we don't know her personal circumstance, but we know having children, last I checked, was optional. And you know what? Unfortunately, these children are left to suffer at our bad decision making. So again, be careful of what you feed. What happened that made you just continually high? That's nothing to do with I'm judging. And it's an assessment. It's an assessment because here we are with a whole group of children, now 7 children, in the care of the system. So yeah, it takes a village. It's all of us who have to care and pray and reach out and help. So yeah, we have to pay attention to what we feed. Now, speaking of feeding, we had our girl Athena on with us on Thursday as we talked about what you put in your body matters. What are you feeding your body? When are you feeding your body? How are you feeding your body? Yeah, I told you we talked about be careful what you feed all week long. We were just on that theme the entire week. We were on that roller coaster of making sure we eat right. On Thursday, what are you eating? What time are you eating breakfast? What time are you eating lunch? How much should you eat? What are you doing in addition to eating? All of these things matter for every last one of us, whether we realize it or not. We may not be seeing the results, but I'm going to tell you something. That stuff adds up and it will catch up to you. So let's make sure we take care of our bodies. Now, on Freestyle Friday, we got to talking to our men, and we had a good conversation, and I'm going to send you back to listen to what they had to say. Yep, I'm going to keep that one to myself. Go back and listen, but it was definitely thought-provoking as always. The men always send us, and whether we agree or whether we don't agree, they always send us into a thought-provoking weekend. All right. So I pray that your weekend went well, that everything is going well, and God has blessed you, and you woke up today to shake the Monday morning blues with us, and you ready to get this week started. Are you? Wonderful. Well, go ahead and get that healthy breakfast. Go ahead and tell somebody, anybody, everybody that it's due time with Pastor Steph is on. And whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because we will be right back.
The Native American and African American duo who accidentally created the most addictive snack in history, then watched the world get rich off their invention while they got absolutely nothing. In 1853, at Moon's Lake House in Saratoga Springs, a picky customer complained that George's French fries were too thick. Annoyed, George sliced potatoes paper thin, fried them to spite the customer, and created what we now call potato chips. But here's where the story gets tragic. The chips became an instant hit. Wealthy customers traveled from New York City just to taste Saratoga chips. George opened his own restaurant where millionaires like Cornelius Vanderbilt would wait in line for hours. His sister Catherine also claimed she accidentally invented them when a potato slice fell into hot oil. But here's the kicker. Neither George nor Catherine ever patented their invention. They had no idea what they'd created would become a global phenomenon. Today, Americans consume 1.85 billion pounds of potato chips annually. The industry is worth over $10 billion a year. That's billion with a B. Companies like Lay's built empires on their accidental creation. George died in 1914 at age 90. Catherine died in 1924 at 102. Both died having seen none of the massive profits from the snack food revolution they started. Every time you buy a bag of chips, remember, you're enjoying $1 billion.
Good morning, and good morning again. Welcome back to Due Time with Pastor Steph, and we are shaking the Monday morning blues. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I love me some Lay's yellow chips. Yeah, I always tell the girls, bring me a bag of yellow Lay's. Only to find out that we invented the chip. Wow, y'all. I tell you, there's a whole lot of hidden gems out here that we have no idea about. So we better do our history, because do your research. We have no idea. You know, all of these PSAs that have been popping up, the Murphy bed and, you know, cell phone or the fiber optics and all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. Now imagine dying at 91, and the other one at 102, and never seeing anything that never see the return of something like that. That's got to be heartbreaking. That's definitely got to be heartbreaking. So, wow. And you can't even go back for that money. No, but you know what? You started it. Didn't, and again, 1914 and 1924, nobody would know what the chip would turn out to be. No, not at all. So, well, let's do our research. We got a whole lot of stuff hidden in this world that we've contributed to, and we ain't got no idea we've ever had a part in. Well, it's what they call Indigenous Day. Yeah, the school is closed. Some jobs are closed. And we're here shaking the Monday morning blues. And I want to say good morning to those who are joining us, some of our loyal viewers. So we're going to say good morning to our girl, Ketty. Hey, Ketty girl. What's going on? And Your Highness. Good morning, Mr. Terrence. Yes, King Terrence. How are you? Good to see you all on with us today. We got to make sure, we give a shout out. I don't know if Miss Grace is laying back up in the cut, but if so, good morning, Miss Grace. Terrence, how's mom doing? Got to make sure she's doing okay as well. And we want to say good morning to the ladies that always keep us humming and running in the morning. We're going to say good morning to our girl Shantice. Hey, Shantice. And we're going to say good morning to our girl Anika. Good morning to you. Good morning. So, we got our, what do you call that thing? We got our health tip this morning. And it's kind of interesting. They're talking about foods with mold that we should never eat. and 3 that might still be fine to eat. Now, I have heard that, there are some foods that have mold that is safe. Now, we know mold to be like green and fuzzy, and we ain't trying to eat none of that. And you better not, because you're going to be sick. But, it's safe to eat something, and other things, most things that's moldy is not safe to eat. All right. But we got some information here this morning. So make sure you write down all of this little stuff that I'm going to give you this morning that God is sending through. I always got to say that. We don't have any concept of anything until God gives it to us. We can't take no credit for none of this stuff. I don't care what we stumble on or whatever. God always sends it to us. So giving God the glory this morning. Well, we know that raw meat should never, ever, ever be cooked, undercooked. Eaten undercooked. Let me rephrase that. Eaten undercooked. Even though we see people still ordering like rare steaks and burgers and stuff, it is so dangerous, they say, to eat that food. But what's even more unsafe is when the meat has been cooked, we've got to eat it within a certain amount of time, or make sure we store it a certain way. And if we don't, that can make us really, really sick. And sometimes things don't always have a smell to it. So even the smelling may not be so indicative of problems. So they're talking this morning about soft cheeses like brie, cream cheese, cottage cheese. They say make sure if you see any mold on your brie, cream cheese, or cottage cheese, you get rid of it right away. And cheese is a funny food because that's like aged, and that cheese is weird, but they're cautioning us against eating any of those cheeses that have any green fuzzy stuff on it, any mold on it. They said make sure we get rid of it. They say that means you could still be eating mold you can't see, which can cause you stomach problems or maybe something even worse. So if you see any green stuff, you got to get rid of it. Okay, so yeah, I'm bad at that. I'll cut stuff off and throw away that part and save the rest. And they say just certain foods we can't do that with, and these 3 are foods we can't do that with. Okay, so they say soft fruit and vegetables, get rid of. So they say most fruits and vegetables should not be eaten once they have visible mold on their surface. And if we do see it, that means that there's some bacteria and some contaminants that have traveled into the food. So make sure, even if it's on your skin, get rid of it. All right. Cooked pasta and grains. So right now we're tossing soft cheeses that have mold on it. We're tossing soft fruits and vegetables that have mold on it. And now they're talking about the cooked pasta and grains. Get rid of it. They say the texture of cooked pasta and grains, definitely we got to pay attention to. And if it has a high moisture content, contaminants can grow underneath the surface. So there's mold going on that we can't even see. So the bacteria could be still sitting up in there. So if we see any sign of mold, just toss it. All right. Now here's where I am guilty. Bread. Yeah. Sometimes, like in the summertime, the heat And I'd be mad because my bread, and I just start ripping stuff off. And they say, nope. They say baked goods like bread and pastries that we see mold on, get rid of, because they only have a small window of time that bacteria starts to move through your food. I should have been dead a long time ago, y'all. Oh my gosh, I should have been dead a long time ago. They say a lot of things are brewing underneath. Okay, so get rid of the bread and baked goods that have any green or mold on. Get rid of it. Okay? All right. Terrence says, I see anything with a little mold, I don't care what it is, in the garbage, it will go. Yeah, Terrence, I gotta live by that now. Now, I do make sure of this. They say jarred pasta sauce. Even if it's in the refrigerator, sometimes when you open up the jar, the first thing I look in is to see if there's any mold or fuzzy stuff, because there have been times I've had to throw out like a jar of spaghetti sauce. So if you should see that, they say get rid of it right away. Do not. And I do get rid of it. Not only that, what I started doing was freezing it. So whatever's left, I put it in a Ziploc bag and just freeze it. And it's always good for later. Remember, that pasta sauce is tomatoes. So tomatoes do go bad after a while. So throw it in the garbage. Now here's something that I have not seen. Nuts and grains. They're saying that nuts and grains can grow a type of mold that will produce some bacteria and can be linked to liver problems. All right. So if you see any mold on your nuts or, seeds, get rid of them. They say nuts, flour, or rice, throw it away immediately. And we do. That's something we don't play with either. We definitely throw away the nuts, the mold, the flour, or rice. You know what gets moldy? Flaxseed. Yeah. It'll get those strings on it like webs. Yeah. You got to get rid of that. I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens with that. I don't know if it's a certain level of moisture or length of time. I don't know. Now, they're saying jams and jellies, get rid of that if it has mold on it. Definite bacteria is growing in it. So definitely get rid of that. If you see it, it never stays in our house long enough to get any mold on it. Yeah, I ain't never seen no mold on jelly or jams. Yeah. Now they're saying hard fruit and vegetables. If you see mold on it, you can save it. So they say some fruit with firm outside, such as carrots, bell peppers, and cabbage. If it has mold on the outside, you can still consume it. Now, here's the funny part. Now, you just got finished telling us to throw out all this other stuff. And now you're telling us that we can keep these things. So again, carrots, bell peppers, and cabbage. They say if it has a hard outside, the mold on it does not affect the inside. So you can eat that. There's no risk of that. Exactly what you see, that's what they're saying. Exactly what you see is what you're getting. But you got to be careful of your knife. Yes. To avoid cross-contamination. So in other words, if you're peeling, let's say the carrots, and you're peeling the mold off, you need to make sure you wash that peeler or your knife so that the good carrot does not have any mold on it, because again, you can't necessarily see every bit of mold. Hard cheeses, they say you can save, like Parmesan, cheddar cheese. If you see mold on it, you can save it. It's weird. Now that I read all other stuff, it's like, now I'm like, I don't want to save anything. Yeah, but they say that you can save any of the hard cheeses, not the soft ones. Brie, cottage cheese, and cream cheese. But Parmesan cheddar cheese, you can just cut it off. Again, make sure your knife does not touch the mold itself. So cut well beneath the molded part, and the rest of it is good to eat. Hard and dry cured meats. They say you can eat that. And hard salami, make sure it's beef. I don't even know if beef salami will get moldy. I think it just gets soft. But generally hard salami, that Genoa salami, is pork. So you don't want to eat no pork that got no mold on it. No, that is definitely something you want to stay away from. So there you have it. We got the mold foods that we can eat. And, oh, I just looked at this picture Shantice got up here. Oh, goodness gracious. That looks terrible. After that, I don't want to see anything with mold on it. So, do y'all eat stuff with mold? Tell me in the chat room. Tell me what y'all do with the molded stuff. Before today. If you have bread, would you break off the molded part? If you had cheese, would you cut? I definitely do that. I cut well below anything that's hard, especially if they've wrapped it up and they let it get hard. So the top of it is really hard. I cut well below that. So tell me what y'all do. Terrence has already said anything with mold goes in the garbage. That's a typical man thing. They just throw everything out. But let me know. I'm interested. You know, as I talk about the news, just let me know. All right. So what are we talking about in our news today? I don't know. It was like a bunch of gruesome stuff, like killing and cutting up the bodies. And I'm like, no, I can't talk about that every day early in the morning. Okay, well, this is an update, actually. I came across something last night. Remember a while ago, we talked about, I don't know if it was earlier this year or late last year, but we talked about here in New York, they were giving fines to anyone who had their license plate blocked. Because remember, that was during the time when they were talking about all these people were like going through the toll and they couldn't read the license plate numbers. Yeah, so now in Florida, and I'm gonna tell you something, it's probably not gonna be in Florida only. They've got even a harsher penalties for this license plate issue. They say anyone who they find who is intentionally obstructing or altering their license plates, they are going to go to the fullest extent possible. They are not playing anymore. They're tired of these people like getting away with all the stuff they can get away with now that they can block these license plates or registrations. So your registration card, the registration that's in the window, the license plate, they going after everything out in Florida. They say not only are they going after the driver or the owner of the car, the manufacturers and the distributors of the products. Yes. So they're making devices that will help obstruct the license plates. Well, baby, guess who's on that list? Amazon. Yes. They're saying that they are now charging everybody with these new statutes. They say that they will go as high as second-degree misdemeanor charges. They say punishments for the drivers or the owners of the cars up to $500, up to 60 days in jail, and even some stricter rules and laws. They say that it doesn't matter what happened prior to October 1st. As of October 1st, everything is getting stiffer. They say the fine for using a device was around $60, but owning or possessing one was not criminalized under the previous law. Well, guess what? Owning and possessing it, they smashing you up to $5,000 in fines and up to 5 years in jail. And again, they say it makes it second degree misdemeanor. And if you know, they say, after knowingly obstructing a registration certificate, a license plate, or a specified sticker, or covering or interfering with the license plate's legibility, you're going down. And let me help you understand something. The bad part about this is once one state picks up these things, it becomes infectious. Yeah. So like I said, we talked about New York. Now, New York wasn't talking about having any laws as strict as these, but you better believe that if Florida is jumping up to $5,000 plus up to 5 years in jail, New York is going to follow behind it, and other states are going to follow behind it. They say ghost cars result in impossible law enforcement. And remember, that's what they were saying here in New York. You can't, when they were trying to get all those vehicles for going through and not paying their Easy Pass fines, they couldn't get to a lot of them because they had obstructed the license plate, so they couldn't read it. Well, they ain't playing that no more. And like I said, they're going after major retailers like Amazon. So anybody who's selling these devices, you're going down as well. Yeah, they're not playing. They're mad. Let me tell you something. Anytime you mess with their money, that's all they want. That's all they need. They going after you. All righty? You're going down. All right? Woo! Speaking of money, you have this son who is 25 years old, who is now facing charges for murder with special circumstances, which I don't understand what the special circumstances are, felony murder, criminal use of a weapon. He's also charged with burglary and larceny for a reported break-in the next day. Now check this out. Javion Adams, who's 25 years old, he has a history of domestic violence already prior to this particular incident. And it shows that back in December of 2024, Javion was charged with assault, strangulation, or suffocation and risk of injury to a child. But that ain't where he ended, because he is now being charged with the murder, felony murder, criminal use of a weapon, and all of that against his parents. Now, he lived with the mother, didn't live with the father, but they were constantly at it. Now, some people heard his mother yelling at him, Colleen Williams, 51 years old, yelling at him, telling him, you don't pay rent, you don't pay bills, you don't even buy food. And they have surveillance as well. Surveillance footage that shows the argument. And the bottom line, not bottom line, the bad part about it is dad was also on top of him. So even with dad being on top of him, it didn't even matter. It didn't even matter. They said that you could hear him say, I don't care no more, F y'all, I don't care what y'all say. Now, the father had also been getting on him, who's 55 years old, who's been getting on him about not paying, to stay with the mother, as well as stealing from the mother. So he's been, now they don't say he's on any drugs or anything like that, but they say he's been stealing from the mother. And somehow or another, the parents ended up in the house together, and he shot them in the head. Shot the mother twice and his father once in the back of the head. Because he was mad because they were upset that he wasn't paying any rent or helping with any of the bills. You know, I don't know what's going on now with these kids. You know, and I'm not saying it just started now, but it's like, again, even the father wasn't in the home, but was involved somehow with, getting on the son. He's 25 years old. He's still a kid. Yeah, he's not a baby, but he's still young. And yet disrespectful to the degree of murder. So the disrespect wasn't alone, wasn't something that, he could even stay there. You shot your parents in the back of the head because you weren't doing what you were supposed to do. So you begin to wonder, like, okay, so where did all of this stem from? Did y'all not, get to him early enough? Is he rebelling because the father ain't in the home? You don't even know what's going on. But I'm seeing a slew of this rebelliousness and this disrespect. And it's like people are kind of shrugging their shoulders at it. Like, I can't do nothing about it. What you going to do with them? And this is where we end up, unfortunately. This is where we end up. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And what are you going to do about this? You got to start earlier. You got to start early. We just got finished talking, what was it? Week before last? Yeah, week before last, excuse me, with the Due Time crew about what do we do with these kids? The line that's drawn between, disciplining your child and abusing your kid. And here you are, the parent, the kid is killing the parent. We got to check in from our girl, Renee. Good morning, Renee. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow. This is crazy. This is crazy. What else we talking about? In a couple of minutes, we're going to pull up our... I don't know if I want to talk about that. Let me see if I got something else to talk about. Yo, I want to talk about this one. So you got this teacher, Melissa Martin, 47 years old, who is a substitute teacher out in Vermont. And the kids ended up telling the staff and their parents how weird she had been acting. And one of the kids was a little boy. He follows her out of the classroom. So she was in the classroom, and he says all of a sudden she started acting weird. So she leaves the classroom and he leaves behind her, and he asks her, like, what's the matter? Miss Martin, whatever he calls her. Well, let's go back a minute. Baby, homegirl was on cocaine so badly that she was bringing the cocaine to school and using it right in the school. So they found the drugs on her. They did ask her, where's the drugs? So she told them that the drugs was in her bag, in her jacket pocket. Well, they had K9 with them. And after K9 got finished, they went through her other stuff to find that she had more cocaine in her jacket and backpack than she showed them, because the initial pack that she showed them from her pocket, in her jacket pocket, was small. But when Canine went, sniffing around, they found more drugs. Well, here's the kicker to the fact that because always I may start off with like a simple story, like, okay, what's the big deal with that, Pastor Steph? Here's the problem. Not only were you using drugs, but when the little boy left to ask her, what's going on? Are you okay? She said, hey, Teddy, why are you off your leash? She thought the little boy was her dog. That's how high she was on the drugs. They said they caught her nodding. Now, that's a little interesting because cocaine generally doesn't make you nod. But they did say that they did catch her nodding, and they arrested her immediately. Now, quite a few of these children can attest to her acting weird. And that's another problem. So they said that they did a background check on her, and both times her background check came back clean. Well, do they check your background for drugs? You know what I'm saying? Checking your background is not going to reveal drug usage. So maybe you got to start testing for drugs like all the other jobs that check for drugs. Because clearly checking her background is not going to reveal she's on drugs. And not only that, who's to say that she was using drugs when you check the background? That's a habit that you could pick up at any time. So checking her background, is not the answer. That will reveal, some things, but not anything like this. Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. Terrence says, I don't even know family therapy would have helped it. Oh, he's talking about the kid. I don't even know if family therapy would have helped this kid, and the parents probably saw signs that this would have happened a long time ago. And it's possible. Didn't say that, he had been known for like hitting the parents or fighting the parents, but you just ain't gonna wake up shooting nobody. I agree with you, Terrence. I definitely agree with you. And in this, Terrence is saying, how long was she high before they noticed and wanted to watch her before they called the police? This has been multiple times. Right. Because the kids had complained about it. They said the kids complained to the staff and to their parents that she had been acting weird. So clearly this was also a substitute teacher that had been around for a minute. Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious. Where is the due time crew? Let's get our crew up here. Let's say good morning to our girl Shantice. We're missing Our Lady Tamika today.
Yes.
Keeping her and Brother Al with his paw up in prayer. So, oh my goodness, Shantice, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thanks. I'm good. So, let's talk about this son.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go back a little bit. I got a couple of. I asked about the mold on the food and who does what with the mold. Katie says English muffins. If the first two are molded, then the rest aren't. I'll keep it. Okay, it makes sense. And now Kenny is saying that teacher had to be doing something else because cocaine does not make you act like that. And I've never heard of cocaine doing that either.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this son, 25 years old, Javion Adams, who has not been contributing. And they have the mother on surveillance, and other people heard her yelling, hey, you don't pay no bills, you don't pay no rent, you don't contribute in here, you don't even buy food. And it was probably from his attitude, you coming home and bringing attitude. And they said that the father was also getting on him about his lack of contribution, as well as stealing. So not only are you not contributing, but you stealing, really? To the degree of argument where he ends up shooting them in the back of the head. Shot the mother twice, shot the son, the father once in the back of the head. So is this something that we can probably think, this was brewing from a long time ago, and nobody paid it much attention, didn't think it was going to get this bad? He had to have done something earlier, because he ain't going to wake up just start shooting people. Would you agree or disagree?
I definitely agree. Even if you didn't think it would get to the point where he would take a gun and literally kill you, but you knew he was going to at least slap you, something, pistol whip you, something, because it went from just a simple "I'm talking to you" and you're not even responding to "I'm talking to you" and now you got the nerve to talk back, yell at me, curse at me, do all the fact that we're arguing like this. And I've never heard of any child, whether you're a child or an adult child, actually paying rent when you're still at home. Contributing, yes. But if your parents ask you for $20 in your mind, for some reason you think you're paying rent. Listen, to rent a room now is at least $1,000, $1,100. To rent a room where you don't even have access to the kitchen. There are homes where the landlord is like, listen, you share this bathroom with such amount of people, but don't think you're going to go up in that kitchen and cook. So not only are you paying actual rent, you have to buy out food all the time because you're not even granted access to the kitchen. So if your parents is asking you for $500, $800, you're still not paying rent, sir. Like, that's still not rent. And considering all the time, if you're 25 years old, considering from 18 to 25, so that's what, at least 7 years of them carrying you as a quote unquote adult, because you're still a baby at 25, even though you're classified as an adult by age. And obviously you're still a baby because you didn't have the temper tantrum because you were asked to contribute. You're still paying, you're still just contributing. You're not paying rent. So the utilities plus the food plus you being able to put this key in this door whenever you want. So they saw this coming, even if you didn't think. And nowadays, I'm sure a lot more parents are thinking, well, listen, because you ain't going to pull out no gun, especially parents on this side of the fence. Because I remember, Pastor Steph, we saw a video where the mother said her and one of her girlfriends or someone was watching a video, and the girlfriend said, oh, this puts you in the mind of your kids. And she went home to the kids and started yelling at them like, why my girlfriend said this put her in the mind of y'all? What y'all fitting to do? What y'all got planning and brewing up? Because it's just like the thought of why my friend is watching kids go crazy and that's putting her in the mind of my kids. I need to sleep with one eye open. So unfortunately, you do have to be on guard like that nowadays with your kids, but there was something leading up that lets you know that, as they say in the streets now, the new term is you acting ed, meaning you acting special. That's the new term.
What in the world?
I don't know.
That's a terminology now?
Terminology in the streets now, like you acting real ed, like you're real ed. I don't use it. I'm telling you what the term is, okay? But yeah, he was acting real ed. He let you know when he quit that job, he let you know he wasn't trying to contribute. Okay? So yeah, but they weren't all that oblivious 100%. And it's sad that they weren't even, I mean, if they were old, it's still crazy. They weren't even old parents. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I'm seeing a lot of this lately, with just lack of this entitlement, this lack
Yes.
of even wanting to do something. It's just this entitlement that says, you're my mom, you're my dad, you're supposed to do. And it's like, yo, where you come from? You're
Mhm.
25 years old. And there are parents who, at the age of 18, they don't care whether you are rich, poor, needy, got a job, but as soon as you hit 18 and you finish that last day of school, you are done. Officially done.
I had a friend, Pastor Steph, at 16. His parents was like, you got to get a job or you can't live here at 16. So obviously they weren't expecting him to drop out of school, but she was supposed to go to school, get this job so you can contribute, even if it wasn't contribute to the house, but you fund your own clothes, your own whatever. That pressure right there at 16 years old.
Now, at 16, we should still be taking care of our kids.
Right.
You got big old grown people who are having a hard time finding a
Mhm.
job. And we've already talked about people with degrees who can't find jobs, and and yet you're looking for your 16-year-old to find a job, to even fund their own clothes. Why am I asking you
Mhm.
to take care of you,
Right.
at 16 years old? And I could even see a parent who's having difficulty, like struggling financially. But how much onus do you put on your kids? If you're struggling financially, what's gonna
Right.
happen with them?
Right.
It's like
Yes.
you grown and you struggling. So it's really this is a really bad state of affairs. Just so everybody know, poor little Pastor KL is popping in and out over here. He said, remember last week he was having so much difficulty
Yes.
getting on. Well, he's having difficulty again today because he keeps coming in and going out and keeps coming in, get kicked out. So hopefully he'll be able to join us. Or it'll be the Stephanie and Shanti show. So we really gotta pay attention. I want to talk more about this. Hopefully, Pastor KL will get on and he can stay on, so we can really sink our teeth into this, because I want to talk about this a little bit. I'm hoping that you all in the chat room will join this conversation. Look at him unpacking the breakfast. Good
Is that a
morning,
KFC
Pastor
dog?
KL.
Is that fried?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? Good morning.
How are you, Mr. Fried Chicken Man?
I'm about to be well.
Oh,
Oh
goodness.
my goodness. Well, before you start chewing, let's
Uh-huh.
talk about this 25-year-old kid who has not been contributing. His mom, she was getting on him, has been getting on him. He's not contributing to the house. He's not buying any food. She says, you're not paying any rent. You're not contributing to any bills. Dad is also getting on him, not only about not paying rent or contributing to the bills, but he's getting on him about stealing from the mother. So not only are you, not contributing, but now you taking from the home. And he ends up shooting them execution style. Twice in the back of the head for the mom, and once in the back of the head for the father. Now, I was asking Shantice, when do we see signs of this? Just couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, hey, there's a fine line between abuse and discipline, and what exactly are we talking about here? You straight out of control.
Well, I said it before. I said, we create the monster, and then when the monster grows up and becomes the monster, now we can't control the monster. We've enabled this child for too long, and we've said yes, 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 yes. And now that we say no, or we find that you need structure, or we find that you need to grow up, it's too late. Why I need to grow up now? I was able to be a child or to get anything I wanted up until this age. But now you telling me no. I don't know how to adjust to no. But there was clearly signs earlier. When the child goes into the store and he has a tantrum because he can't get those potato chips, and you give it to him because you're embarrassed and you just don't want to see him cry. Now is a 25-year-old child who's having a tantrum, but now he has a tantrum with a gun.
Mm. What age do you feel your child should start contributing into the home?
Okay, well, that's kind of sketchy. If you decide you don't want to go to school anymore, you contribute. You're not going to just sit home in my house and play your games or watch TV, stuff like that. If you graduated from high school, but you decide college is not for you, you need to get a job. As long as you're going to school, as long as you're going to let me rephrase that. As long as you're going to high school, you don't have to contribute because you have enough on your plate to try to graduate as a black person. You know what I mean? But after that, once you got your diploma, you walk across the stage and you decide school is not for me anymore, that's your prerogative. But you're gonna put something in this house.
Okay. Okay. Well, pretty much, that's my sentiment. When you're going to school, focus. I don't want you to be focusing on, you gotta get your own clothes, and now you mad because you can't wear these kind of sneakers, and I'm not buying these kind of sneakers and things like that. You're gonna have a lifetime to work. God spares your life. You got time to do all of that. You'll manage. You'll manage. Um, Now, when you get out of school again, I like you. College is not a mandate. That would be nice, but college is not a mandate. But you gonna do something. You're not gonna be here. I'm not gonna be getting up, going to work, and I'm gonna be saying, "Okay, see you later." And
Hmm.
you ain't here from a night job. so something happening. This can't be. This is our regimen. This cannot be our regimen. So it says a lot. That here we are. You're 25 and you're shooting your parents, both parents. You're shooting your parents in the head. You would rather kill your parents than to hear their mouth, hear what they, hear the disciplining or receive your disciplining. So now you don't want to you don't want to listen to your parents, but now you're going to listen to somebody else for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
Now, that's really a nice choice. Nice selection. Now you're going to jail for the rest of your life. And you better hope you don't end up in the wrong cell.
Hmm. With the wrong CO governing you.
Wrong CO or wrong set of inmates
Hmm.
who think you a punk, who heard that you shot your parents in the back of your head because they got some loyalty to parents, even in their
Hmm.
criminalistic mind. Criminals are weird. You know, there's a code that you
Right. Right. It's like,
have
so
to
what?
follow.
So what? I ripped out his Adam's apple. I ain't shoot my parents.
Right.
What?
Because even in the Scared Straight program, I remember, I don't know if y'all remember this, but even in the Scared Straight program, you had those inmates, when they saw those kids coming in, they had told the inmates what
Hmm.
those kids had done. And they
Hmm.
were, you disrespect your parent? You just
Yep.
did that your mother? She get up every day, she work for you, and she clean and she cooking, and they were like all over them. It was like something that you just don't do. So,
Hmm.
oddly enough, you've got this issue of you shoot your parents because all they did was ask you. Man, All right, so we got Terrence that says, I agree with Pastor KL. He don't mind if he's going to jail. He's not paying rent in jail. No, but you're going to pay a whole lot more than rent. You're right, Terrence. You're going to pay a whole lot more than rent. You're going to wish you had that rent to pay in jail. Because like I said, run up against the wrong CO. You're done.
And they're going to intentionally place them around inmates who they know would despise that type of crime.
Yeah. Kenny says, yep, but he's going to live in a 2x4 cell in jail. Yeah. You have to keep that cell clean. They're not going to let you keep it a mess. You have to keep that cell clean. Or if you're in, what do they call it? Oh my gosh. It's like when everybody's together. I can't think of the word they use. But they don't always have, because they have them over at Rikers. They don't always have like individual cells. So you're like out on the floor. And they make you clean up your area. I know
what you mean. It's like all their bunks are like in a huge space
area. Yeah, I can't think of what they call it, but yeah, you have to clean that up. You can't leave that like that. So, all right, let's talk about this teacher who's got the cell block 4, cell block 7.
So Terrence wasn't locked up.
I can't think of it's when everybody's in the same area. Let's talk about this teacher who's got this drug problem. So she's using cocaine to the degree that she's acting weird around the students. So one of the boys follow her out. Oh, general population. Hey, Daquan, checking in from Daquan. No, not general population. I can't think of the name of this. It's like when everybody is in the same area.
Yeah, I know someone who did some hard time. I'm about to ask them.
Yeah. She said, thanks, Daquan. Glad to see you on. Good morning. Oh, Terrence says, I can't do jail.
We can tell because you don't know the name.
Yeah. She's using drugs to the degree where she says to the little boy, hey, Teddy, why you not on your leash? She actually thinks that her student is the dog. What kind of drugs are you? That ain't no cocaine. What are you using? So now they're asking who vetted her, who checked her background, how come this didn't come up? It's drugs. They don't test teachers for drugs, last I heard. So even if you checked her background, she may not show, child abuse or anything like that, but she ain't gonna show no drugs either if you don't test her for drugs. Who does? Ain't nobody doing that these days. What's going on in the school, Shantice? How should they handle her? That's my question.
They need to definitely lock her up. Because I agree. I've unfortunately been around people who've done cocaine. You are hype. Like you think you flying and you got all this energy and all of that. It was something else mixed with that. I don't know. But they definitely need to, because that's the same way. If she thought one of the students was a dog, that's the same way she could have believed the student could fly and threw them out the window. She could have just started beating on one of the students, or could have just passed out. And now there's no one governing these kids. And now they in the classroom doing whatever, leaving the classroom or whatever. So, and it was funny because we were just talking about substitute teachers this past weekend. Just talking about, and I was like, I don't understand certain things. To me, they just didn't seem, some of them didn't seem too bright. It seemed like they had substitute teachers who knew nothing about the subject at all. And it's like, well, did you just put your name on the list and they just called you and you rolled out of bed and you just came? Like, how does this work? But she definitely needs to get locked up, because your job at least is to babysit the classroom. You couldn't even do that. You were so strung out that you had to get high before going to this school You probably got high in the school because I couldn't
She did.
Yeah, because you ain't walking past people. Because if that's the case, then all of them need to be locked up. How many adults did you walk past? Because you had to check in as a substitute to let them know that you were there. They had to direct you to the class or tell you which class to go to. So you did all of that high? No. So you got a high what? You started sniffing before the students walked up in there, or you were in the corner and did this? And it's like kids are the most observant group of people. Because even if you somehow are able to bypass the adults, the kids gonna catch on. Even if they can't necessarily pinpoint exactly what it is, they're gonna catch on, which they did. So she definitely needs to do some good time in prison.
Pastor Kale, well, what should happen with her?
Have I not been crossed to the other side of the man of God, dealing with some of these children, I'd had to get high before I dealt with some of these children. I'm just saying. I ain't mad. I mean, have y'all really now forget about Mariah. Have y'all really seen the real Mariah ain't a real child. You know what I mean? Have y'all ever seen the real children? You know, have you heard the conversations from a real child? You know, I deal with that every day in my store. I'd have to get high just to deal with you because some of them are crazy. Now, taking that aside, I don't think she should go to jail. She didn't, no one was hurt. She definitely need to be fired and don't need to be around children anymore. You know what I mean? However, listen, y'all spend one day in my store, you would want to get high. You would want to get high.
Well, Pastor Kale, I think that's all of us who's ever dealt with a child or children intensely. We ain't say we didn't understand her desire. We're questioning the fact that she actually got high.
She was brave. She was brave. She did what all of us wants to do. She did one for the team.
I mean, yeah, she did one for the team, but I don't want to go to jail. I may want to get high, but not go to jail.
Well, I'm sorry. I beg to differ. Although no one got hurt, you endangered your children. You're there for the safety of the children, not only to teach them, but for their safety. Now you have endangered the students because you're so intoxicated that you thought the child was a dog. I ask again, what kind of drugs we using where it really showed the degree of your toxicity in this environment. So, I think you need to do some jail time because that
when she walked through the door, she was in danger. She was fighting for her life. She didn't know what Pookie had.
I do understand, where teachers are these days. It ain't what it used to be. But you know what? At the end of the day, we still have our responsibility to make, these environments safe for our children. We
You know what, Pastor Steph?
Yes.
We're the same. We're around the same age. And teachers back in the days, the only thing they had to worry about was one of us saying "old lady." That was a cuss. We were saying "old lady." Leave me alone, old lady. Now these children are cussing them, slapping them, doing all type of stuff. You know, my old lady. They beating them like they're the same age.
So then why take the job? They sound like the cops who just want to make it home safe, especially as a substitute. As a substitute, so for teachers, a lot of times they start the job not really making money, but that's your career choice. As a substitute, you are really making the conscious decision to put your name on the list as a substitute teacher. So if you know that you don't want to deal with that, why sign up for the job? You already know the climate of these classrooms now. You already know as a teacher now, you got to be the teacher, you got to be the social worker, you got to be the cop, you got to be the CO, you got to be everything. You got to be the parent, you got to be everything now. Why sign up for the job?
Then where do you sign up? Because you even have this problem in the post office. Listen, when I come to work, my prayer when I leave the house is let me come back home safely. And I'm not in a school. But everywhere you go, you just want to come home safely. Everywhere you go, there is dramatic turmoil. So what can we sign up for? Nothing.
No, you
We can't even
can.
work at home no more.
What's your coping skill?
Right, but now
What's your coping skill? Well, how are you handling it? Like you said, everybody can make the same argument. You're absolutely right. Everybody can say, you know what, if I'm a construction worker, I hope to make it back home because the scaffold might fall. The elevator, the man who washes the windows on the high rise. I hope I make it back home because you know what? I have a girlfriend who told her friend, don't take that job. He was a window washer. She don't take that job, and ran into the mama one day, and she said he fell, died. So we all, there are a lot of jobs, but how do you cope with your job? And I'm sorry, I'm not subscribing to it's okay for you to use drugs because this is the way you cope. Don't take the job. Take another job that you don't have to use, that you want to get home, but you don't have to take drugs.
or choose a job that's not directly dealing with those things. So yes, everywhere you go, you're going to be dealing with people. But I'm not going to take a job that has me dealing directly with danger, and then I'm not coping, as Pastor Steph said, I'm not coping properly because I just want to make it home safe. That's what I'm referring to. That's not what if I know that I don't like dealing with children directly, or I don't know how to deal with them directly to where I'm not going to handle it properly, I'm not going to take a teaching position versus a job where I might end up coming across children is different than taking jobs where I know I'm dealing directly with children. This is as a teacher, your job are kids, the students. Why take the job? And again, as a substitute, this is extra optional. It is extra because as a substitute, it's like being on call every day, all day. You never know when they're going to call you. So why do that? And you have this habit.
But not only that, everybody in their mama knows substitutes don't get no respect.
Wait, say that again.
That's right.
I said everybody in their mama knows substitute teachers don't get no respect.
Yo, that's what I'm saying. You gotta go in there like Michelle Pfeiffer from Dangerous Minds. If you ain't nobody paying you no mind as a substitute.
You lucky you don't get a chair thrown. They ain't shooting at you. They don't make you target practice, especially if you're one of those little white teachers. They really end up in an urban school. You really got your challenge cut out for you. So I wouldn't take that job. If I couldn't handle dealing with, and I'm gonna be honest, I have said a million times, God bless Teresa and Vivian, Brother Al, Mr. Pastor Crystal, God bless y'all. Huh?
Tamasia.
Yes, God bless you, because pastoring is bad enough. That's a hard job. But dealing with these kids every day, nah, I pass. You couldn't pay me enough. You just couldn't pay me enough. No, that's all right. Thank God I have somebody to send my children to. I won't want the job. I don't want no job as a cop. I don't want that job. It's too much. It's too much. And you know what? It's bad because, again, how do we cope with these jobs?
Mm-hmm.
How do we cope with these jobs? Terrence says, I agree again with Pastor KL. Shut up, Terrence. You always agree with Pastor KL. Say something else. Tell us something new, Terrence.
Wait, are you mad? Are you mad because he was agreeing?
Again, I agree with Pastor KL. You always agree with Pastor KL. Just say what you got to say. I agree with Pastor KL. That lady did a good job teaching the kids. They weren't home. She taught them El Chapo, and she told them and showed them how to use drugs properly. I want to know what she was, what she
But he
was,
needs to stop talking.
what she was teaching them. Because if you're sitting in the class and they say you're nodding, you done ran out the class over in a corner somewhere where the kid, had to felt like he needed to come out and find out if you were okay. You know, that there.
Mm, mm-mm.
What?
I'm sorry. Because when I said what I said this weekend, y'all looked at me like I was crazy.
What are you saying?
I said, as a substitute teacher, it annoyed me when the teacher would come in and say, okay, what y'all working on? Why don't you know this, sir or ma'am? And it would say, well, they don't know what it is that you're working on because there's a substitute. Well, I continue to disagree. And this helps me stay in my opinion. You now, as a substitute, you don't know what it is that the kids are working on. What does that mean? Idle time. So you're sitting at home and you're doing nothing. There's nothing you have to prep for. There's nothing that you have to read for the most part. So now you come in here to this class and now you're pretty much winging it because you're not caught up on the work that these students are currently doing. Again, like I said, there were plenty of times we had to ask them, well, are you even a real teacher? Because if this is social studies class, and now we come into the substitute, and it was one thing to ask, well, what is it that you guys are currently working on? Like, where did y'all leave off yesterday? What chapter were you reading to the such? There were times we literally almost had to explain the whole subject. I'm like, well, what are you here for? We might as well just sit up in here by ourselves. So now you're a substitute teacher, you're home doing whatever. Maybe there's another job that you have, most likely, because you can't sit at home doing nothing and expect to be able to get by financially or whatever. And now there's nothing. So now you come into, for people like this woman, you come into the class with nothing prepared. That just leaves a little more time for you to be able to do stuff like this. Because now, what are the students really able to expect from you? You have no lesson prepared, no nothing. So now if your thought was, I'm gonna go up in this class and just sit here and let them just talk or do whatever after I probably check attendance, now what? Versus if you're kept up on, okay, so you're a substitute for these grades, this is the curriculum, this is currently what they're working on. So make sure you stay on top of this, because at any given moment, if we have to call you in, at least now you know along the lines of where they are in the curriculum, where they are in the studies, where they are in such a thing. That's not making any sense to me.
Okay, when this conversation was active, I didn't understand the statement to me, what you just said. That's not what I heard. I heard, how could you be a substitute teacher and not know what the kids are doing? That's what was said pretty much, or that's the way I took what you said. And again, you got to have a substitute teacher, because at any given moment, we know teacher can fall ill, have an emergency.
Absolutely.
Anything, they need to be able to go to the classroom and fill in. What does fill in mean these days? When you got the first order of duty is to get the class under control. How are you even teaching when you got to spend half the period? What is a period? 45 minutes now? So you got 45 minutes for the class, and yet you spend 30 minutes trying to get the class under control. So my question is, what am I really expecting a substitute teacher to do, especially if that substitute teacher is coming in for the day? Now, this particular substitute teacher, she had to have been there for a while, because the kid said she had started acting strangely. So clearly, she wasn't brand new to them. Mm-hmm. Especially if the kid went out, followed her. He ain't following nobody new. He's following because he met Miss Williams and he likes her. Mm-hmm. So, he went out there. But I think there's a lot that's being expected. Now, crazy as it may seem, say, well, listen, that's what you paid for. That's what you get paid for. You get paid to go in there and teach the kids. Well, we all just got finished saying that these kids are uncontrollable, they're disrespectful, and how long is it going to take for you to get this class together and be able to go into some level of a lesson, especially if this is not going to be long term? If Miss Campbell is out because, she had an emergency and today's her only day out, and Miss Williams is coming up in there to fill in, she ain't putting a whole lot of nothing in because you ain't got no time to put nothing in there. You got 8 classes to go through, and ain't nobody paying you no mind. So I think there's a lot of expectation, which there should be, but I think that expectation, in a sense, is not logical. I don't know. What do you think, Pastor KL?
Well, back in my dinosaur days, when we had a substitute teacher, it was a free class. I mean, it was a free class as long as we was orderly. You know what I mean? It was a free class. Now I'm gonna tell you, as a substitute teacher, I mean, I guess this is a question for Vivian. Am I a substitute teacher for one subject, or am I just a substitute teacher? Because there's no way, from the premise that Shanti's saying, that I'm gonna be sitting home learning 12 curriculums in case they call me. No, I got other stuff to do. I'm not gonna sit there and learn English, math, and then they call me for Spanish. So what's all the English and math I done did? I'm not doing all that. Now if the teacher is out on maternity leave, then that might be a feeling for me for some weeks. Then yes, I need to learn that curriculum. But if you out because you stubbed your toe or you had to take your little Johnny to the hospital, I'm not learning nothing. Maybe she got high because she didn't have a permanent position and she needed a couple of free checks. Maybe she was depressed. But there's no way in the world I'm learning 9 subjects in hope that you call me. Oh, pick me. I'm ready. No, I'm sorry. I'm coming and I'm sitting down. And I'm going to make sure no one bumps their toe. No one jumps off a table. And we going to be all right. Do what y'all want to do.
But not different subjects. You don't get that until you hit middle school and high school. So typically, if you're an elementary school substitute, then you do have a vast knowledge across all subjects, and you're not necessarily getting as in-depth the way when we switch classes in middle school and high school. So the example I was giving was like, okay, our social studies teacher, you're a social studies substitute teacher because that's the subject that you dive into. So no, you shouldn't, as a substitute teacher, get called to be a substitute for a math class because that's not your area of expertise. But now, if you're a substitute teacher for grades K through 5, or in some schools K through 6, then that's one thing because you're kind of covering everything and you're equipped to know how to cover all subjects. You start getting to middle school and junior high, in high school where you now got to switch class. It's like a professor. If I'm an English professor, no, I'm not gonna cover my colleagues' class in the math department. That's not my area of expertise. But what it sounds like to me is we no longer have substitute teachers. We now have babysitters. So then we need to change the terminology. You're not a substitute teacher.
We've all had babysitters. This has not changed, Shanti.
No.
There's always been a babysitter.
As a regular teacher, you're a babysitter. Like don't get me wrong. But it's one thing to be prepared to teach. But unfortunately, because this class is unruly, I'm spending 90% of this class time getting y'all in order versus I'm not coming here prepared at all. And I'm hoping I got to spend 90% of the time.
Wait, what is prepared? I'm with KL. I don't understand. What is prepared? Okay, so let's be logical. When you're a substitute teacher, you're a substitute teacher, period. You can be called to any school for any grade. They don't have you sequestered to John Philip Randolph Elementary School. It's whatever school needs coverage. You don't have the luxury of saying, I teach math. So therefore, if a social studies teacher needs to have, a sub, I can't go up in there because I don't teach social studies. I only teach math. You're not required to know that particular subject only. That might be your specialty, but that's not your only subject of knowledge. Nobody is doing that, because when you graduate, you may have a focus, but you're expected to know the basics of all the subjects. There's what do you call textbooks? So you get that it's if like Pastor Kale said, if you called in because of a 1 day emergency, then I'm with him. Go up in there, secure the class, make sure everybody's safe. And you know what were y'all up to? Were y'all up to reading pages 13 through 19? Then 13 through 19 it is. You be quiet, we good. Okay, because y'all regular teacher coming back in here tomorrow. If you're here for a maternity leave or a long-term, assignment because somebody passed away or whatever the situation is, now there's a whole different issue. You cannot be prepared to learn that, because again, even if you know ninth grade social studies, every ninth grade social studies teacher is not teaching the same thing. So either way, you're gonna have to go up in there and you're gonna have to be able to teach whatever the curriculum is for that particular classroom. But there is no science behind, well, this you are limited to this and you don't know. No, it don't work like that.
It can go either way. It can go either way. But either way, whether you're assigned to a specific subject or a course, in my opinion, you should still be prepared to teach something. So even with, or be prepared to, but that's what I'm saying again, it may have been different when y'all were in school. And I'm sure it's different now from when I was in school. But there were a few times it just felt like you just here as just to watch us. So then change the terminology. You're not here. Don't ask what page are we up to, because you don't even understand what we're reading, sir. Don't ask that. So you're just the babysitter, which is one of the reasons why, sadly, substitutes don't get no respect. Because you're not coming in here like you're about to teach us something. You're coming in here like you're just supposed to watch us, and now we just here to sit and stare at you. So for the unruly kids, you're not here to enforce anything. You're just here just to sit and look at me. So my opinion,
then
just change the terminology.
Look at it from two different places. Okay, so a lot of times, like myself, if a store can't be opened, they call me. But they call me like now, because the store can't be open in 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, how do you expect me to know what they are? I think that the staff or the people above should know where this teacher left off. The teacher that calls in should say, "Hey, I'm not going to make it today. This is where I left off at with the students." So now, when you call somebody in, at least give them a heads up of what they're going over. If I got to ask the students, "What are you learning?" They ain't learning nothing. You think I'm gonna tell you what I'm learning so that you can give me work? So I'm thinking it's up to the staff to be able to say, "Hey, listen, Johnny's not coming in today, but this is where Johnny left off on page whatever," because Johnny would have instructed whoever she called into that, "Hey, I can't make it. However, this is where I left off at. So whoever you bring in, please let them know this is where I left off at." But if there's no communication, you can't expect the substitution to do anything.
Okay, so I got another scenario. I have another scenario. We both work in HR. Your whole focus may not be HR, but you get the phone call from Johnny he's supposed to be in at 9 o'clock. You get the call at 8:30. My kid just got hit by a car. Am I gonna have time to say, "Hey, well, here's where we left off. Here's where I left off"? That's not always going to be the case. Most times when people call out, you know good and well, ain't nobody didn't say, because they don't have that kind of time. When people call out, they don't call out with no this big amount of time. At the last minute they're calling. So there's no real time to lay out that we were on, we working from 2 textbooks, but here's textbook A, and we were on page 8 in chapter 9 on the 3rd paragraph, and the kids should know. I disagree. I believe that whether the children cooperate or not, you should be able to ask, especially if you're going into a high school. I should be able to ask, okay, where did you all leave off? Why, if I ask a question like that, I'm left to feel like I'm like substandard to my job and I'm not a substitute teacher, I'm a babysitter.
I don't think you're substandard,
Oh,
but don't be
Shantice.
offended
No,
No,
not
okay,
when,
you.
so
when
wait,
Shantice is saying,
wait,
well,
she's
change
addressing
the
that to me.
terminology.
Okay,
No,
wait,
you don't change the terminology.
but this is why a curriculum is in place. Because at least I know, like you said, if that teacher doesn't have the time to say, we left off at this page and I assigned this quiz or whatever. If we're in the second semester and there's a curriculum in place, then this is at least the area in as where we should be. I may not know exactly what page you left off, but I know that y'all are up to World War II. Because at this point in the school year, according to this curriculum, this is where we are. So I may walk in a classroom and whether I say, oh, okay, so I know you guys are up to this, or you should be up to this, and to confirm I'm asking, but for it to just solely, you're only relying on the children to be able to tell you, that's what I'm saying. Because I did say a little while ago, that's why curriculums are in place. Because I agree, at any point, anything could happen. That person isn't able to tell you, like you said, exactly where we are. But I thought that's the reason why certain things were put in place. Because for any reason, somebody may not be able to get that information.
All right, so we got some comments here. We have from Terrence, the good part is she told the kids to be aware of everything around them, because nowadays kids normally sleep in class, don't pay attention, and these kids are paying attention to their teacher's wellness. Absolutely. Thank God for the teacher who, the student who was on point. And we have a check-in from Brielle. Good morning. Brielle, thank you for joining us. She says the way schools and other medical agencies handle this is to keep a binder with a curriculum with where there's a warm handoff. And I agree 100%. I agree that there should be a whole thing written out for your semester, period. And that way, if anything should happen, I agree. So, I'm with you all that say, hey, here's the thing. However, that's the way it should work. But for some reason, it doesn't seem as though this is what they're following. So now that they're not following, now you're off to plan B. And plan B says, I'm the one to blame because I'm not walking in this class equipped to teach because I don't know. And my thing is, listen, you make it happen the best way possible. If I go up in the classroom, and like I said, and I'm there, and I'm going to be there again tomorrow, then I'm like, okay, and the staff, as Pastor KL said, the staff does not, above me, does not have my curriculum. As Shanti said, she said, and Brielle says, well, there should be some hard binder or something up in this classroom that says that at least by October 1st, we should be somewhere in this area. Then so be it. If it's not in there, we're going to have to do the next best thing possible. But I should not be the one to blame because it was not prepared for me. And I'm going up in here and I need to wing this the best way possible. What's good? What's going to be my method? My method may not be your method. My method is ask the kids. Will I get cooperation? Maybe not. But if I don't have anything else to go by, then the teacher got to have something there, unless they're carrying these books with them everywhere. So I can't even rely on a book in the desk to see some notes as to what. But there's got to be one kid in the class that's not a goof off, who can say, well, you know what? Here's the classwork. This is where we left off. So now I can review when I go home, and I can come back tomorrow with a lesson plan. I mean, it is what it is. We know that things should be in place, but it seems like it ain't happening. So then at the end of the day, what does the substitute do? We have This is a big difference than what the story is. The story says I go up in there and I'm gonna get high. Now we don't know why she getting high. We don't know if she got personal problems. We don't know if this is just a habit that she's picked up, and now it's so out of control that she in there because they said she was using during school. Now, if you got it in your jacket, and then you got more in your jacket and in your backpack, that one hit before the school starts, that ain't taking her through the day. So she's indulging through the day. What do you do? How do you handle teachers like this? What do you do with them? What kind of price do they pay for not being on point? Because even if she had a curriculum, what good is that going to do? She getting high. So clearly, a curriculum ain't helping her. So what do you do? What do you do with the teacher? Jail. Pastor Gail, you still off the no jail? You still on the no jail?
Yeah, I'm still on no jail. I'm still on no jail. I mean, she definitely should never come around children again. But I mean, I mean, okay, so y'all saying jail, how much time y'all give her? Life?
At
I mean,
least 10
what
years.
y'all give her?
At least
10
10 years.
years?
A kid could have gone in her back while she was high and took
Yeah,
some.
they could have, but there's no definitive that someone got hurt. They could have. I mean, listen. So don't get me wrong. I understand what y'all saying, and no, she should not have gotten high, but no one got hurt. So how do you make that case? It's not attempted murder. It's not attempted assault. You know what I mean? It's not child abuse. You know what I mean? So how do you make that case of 10? How does 10 years stick?
But that is a form of abuse. Not only that, you've now exposed children who haven't been exposed to drugs before. Congratulations, you're the one who has exposed them to drug use. So no one may have gotten hurt physically, but you don't know how them now knowingly being exposed to drug use will now affect them. And I remember Pastor Steph going over something about 2 years ago, or maybe last year, when sexual abuse was the topic. And one of the things was for children, sexual abuse didn't always come from the child being physically touched. If anything was going on sexually around that child that exposed them to sex, that was classified as sexual abuse. So none of the kids got high, none of the kids got thrown out the window, but they were exposed to this. It was done in front of them, even if she didn't literally sniff in front of them, but they were exposed to this. That's a form of abuse. So no one got hurt physically, but
we also have charges.
So
go ahead.
I just got a question. I mean, from what you said, so as children, sometimes we walk into our parents' door without knocking, and because we saw them having sex, we was abused. Is that what you're saying?
From the breakdown that I remember, yes, it
Oh,
didn't
wow.
only. Yeah, it didn't only have to.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that's a realistic comparison.
Right, in regards to
that's a realistic comparison.
You walking in, the way it was specifically explained, because it was something that was very relatable. This was done intentionally in front of the child. Not I went somewhere where I probably should have knocked, or I was somewhere I had no business being, and I walked in and I saw something, whether it was something sexual or something else. But this was done in front. You've had children who their parents or adult have literally been smoking crack in front of the children. Like they didn't go high.
Right. That I understand.
Right. So that's the breakdown that was given. That was a form of abuse. They didn't have to give the pipe to the child and say, now it's your turn. No, but because it was done in front of them, and I think it was a story Pastor Steph covered a few years ago about that. Like they were literally blowing it in the child's face. That's abuse. That was intentionally done in front of the child.
Right. So that kind of takes you open up a door, to your parents' bedroom when you were told to knock and you did not knock. And now you can't necessarily blame the parents because, oh, you didn't lock the door type of thing. But before we go any further, let's read some of these comments. All right, so we got Brielle saying probably an EAP program mandated to substance treatment. Renee says a few people I know sign up for substitute teacher just to make the money. They think it's babysitting for the day. So right, Pastor KL, it is a babysitter's job for some people. And Brielle says endangering the welfare of a child, possibly not sure of the law that would support this. Well, that's what they pull out, and that's what I was gonna say. They have endangering the welfare of a child, and that's something that they would use, in regards to this. You have cocaine in your pocket and in your jacket pocket and in your backpack. They coming for you. They coming for you. You got this stuff in school, in your jacket and your backpack. I guarantee you they coming for you. You got possession. Although they did make sure in the article to mention, like it was like in the grand scheme of things, it was a small amount of substance, but she's still going to be charged with some level of possession. She didn't have enough for them to say, well, she's been charged with distribution. But you can't tell me that you are operating in this manner. If, let's say for argument's sake, we know nothing happened. Thank God nothing happened. However, we do not live in a world where because nothing happened, you are off the hook. There are many laws that people are charged with because of the exposure to potential danger. So when they find a gun in a home, they don't tell you, well, we're not going to charge you because there was no child shot with the gun, but they'll charge you because the gun was in the home, wasn't locked up, and the child could have gotten access to the gun. So we don't live in a world where there are no laws that say, well, because nothing ultimately happened, that, there's not going to be any charges. What charges are they going to use? Because I'm going to tell you something. These parents are going after this school. They are going to have to charge her with something because they are not taking this laying down. These kids have said, they have gone home and they've complained. These teachers acting different. Now they find out why she's acting different. They are not going to dismiss this. Here's another case of last week I was asking, who do you blame? Because remember, they were slinging mud. Well, here's another case today in this particular case where they're slinging mud. The superintendent is saying, hey, who vetted her? And then they're like, somebody else said, well, we did the background check. And the background check didn't show drugs. The background check would not show drugs because y'all do not drug test teachers. So now here we go with this slinging the mud. Why you think they're slinging mud? Because parents want somebody's head. So they're going to come up with something. I guarantee you that. So whether we feel that they need to go with some charges to potentially send her to jail or not, they're going after her because she exposed them kids. If one of those kids had gotten out of their school, we know of a teacher. One of the kids got out of the school. Ain't nobody was on no drugs, no nothing. They considered it negligence and she lost her job. They blamed her for the kid getting out. Now, because nothing happened to the child, there was no, law or legal. But thank God, the child was found. The child was fine, and nothing happened. But she lost her job. So they're not.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, and maybe you guys might know. I mean, back in my days, we didn't have those metal detectors. But what I do know is that when I go to court or stuff like that, they want me to empty out my pocket and they want me to empty out my bag. Now, does the teachers not have to go through the metal detector?
Well, even you have to remember something. When you go through the metal detectors, most times they don't care what's a pack of gum unless that gum has some metal that will be picked up by the mag. As long as if you have tissue in your pocket, they don't most times they don't care about that. So if there's something
Here,
metal that
here,
might
here, you have to take everything out your pocket.
and they will,
Everything.
and I understand. That's what I'm saying. Most times
Hmm.
it's not an issue of tissue, something like that. Sometimes you're right. They say empty out your pockets. But there are times I'll go through the mag and I was like, and I'll take like tissue and they're like, oh, you ain't got to worry about that. It depends on where you are. But when it comes to the metal detectors in the school, they're not caring about, you know, the teachers. The teachers go through the mag. I mean, the teachers don't go through the mag. When we were at the high
Okay.
school for an order, the kids went through the mag. The teachers went through the middle. They didn't even have to go through the mag.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, with the absence of making them empty out their pockets, now you don't detect if she has drugs or he has drugs
Mm-hmm.
in his possession. Because now, that's why, listen, why you think she was able to have it in a pocket and a backpack? They didn't say she had it in her shoe, in her sock, because
Now,
she didn't have to worry about going through no detector and emptying out her pockets. It was safe for her to have it because they said when they asked her about the drugs, she admitted to having drugs, but she pulled out a small packet. If it weren't for Canine, who continued to sniff, they found another packet in her jacket, and a second packet was in her backpack. So she knew exactly what to do to be able to get up in that school and not be detected.
now, Pastor Steph, but
Because they don't go through it.
at Rikers, the COs have to go through the metal detectors, right? Then they should definitely enforce that in these schools.
Well, definitely, if y'all letting them slide through with drugs,
Yeah, they if the COs got to do it, and they're literally they're babysitters. They're there to literally keep order within those prisons amongst. Then yeah, absolutely, the teachers need to also.
because if it's endangering the child, if you can get something in there that endangers the child, then absolutely you should be made to go through the mag. Ketty says, my cousin did 2 to 3 years for smoking weed around the school where he caught smoking around the schoolyard. Well, that's because it's a no drug zone around schools. So anywhere in the perimeter of the school, if you're found selling or using drugs, you're gonna have to face the music. So that's probably why they got the 2 to 3 years, because it's all schools, especially here in New York City, no drug zone within like
Mhm.
certain feet of the school. You better not be caught selling or using drugs, because you're gonna have to go to court for that. And most times you're gonna do some time. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they come up with anything afterwards. Should she? Shouldn't she? They have this huge thing with endangering the welfare of a child. So I'm sure they're going after her for that one. That is definite something. My due time crew, thank you so much for your contribution into today's conversation. Always good talk. Thank you so much. We pray you have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you.
Woo. Last week the switch tip was be careful what you feed. And we somehow walked into that all week long. Be careful what you feed, be careful what you feed, be careful what you feed. Was consistent, with every conversation that we had. So here we are again this week with be careful what you feed. And now it's you got two cases where you got one kid who 25 years old there's an expectation of him to contribute, and he feels otherwise, to the degree where he gets angry and he kills his parents. You then have a teacher where there's a level of expectation. And for whatever the reason is, she is not only on drugs, but the drug use is so bad that she has to actually use it during the school day. And whether we want to agree or not, her level of responsibility is securing the safety of the children. And once you are intoxicated, you are no longer capable of securing anyone's safety. Clearly not your own when you left the class, clearly not the children in the school. You have no capability of doing this at all. So now where do you go from here? How should you be addressed? How should they handle what you're going through? Again, you have this issue of you exposing the children to drugs. We've known children to actually go through pockets. Now, does that make it right? Absolutely not. But because we know that children will and can go through your pockets. Now, here's the thing. She left the classroom. She left that same backpack in the classroom. Had a child who went through that backpack and had gotten access to those drugs, what would have happened? And then later the child used the drugs and something happened to the child. What would have happened? We need to err on the side of safety. The word of God tells us to be sober, be vigilant, because the enemy is lurking. His goal is only to kill, steal, and destroy. Be sober, be vigilant. The reason why is because once you are intoxicated off of anything, whether it's intoxicated off of power, whether it's intoxicated off of drugs or alcohol, it means keep your mind clear, keep your mind straight, keep an open mind, focus. And no matter how we slice this pie, Ms. Martin could not focus. What does that mean for my child when I send my child into this school to be safe and to learn? I'm not only requiring you or relying on you to keep my child safe. I'm also relying on you to teach my child. I'm not only relying on you to give my child some education. I'm expecting you to keep them safe as well. Well, we have to be on point all the time. That's just the law of the land. You're a teacher. That's your job. Whether you're a substitute or whether you're a permanent teacher there, that's your job. And when we fall short, there are consequences we have to deal with. And there were consequences across the board. Now, some of us, like any other set of judges, some judges may not rule the same way other judges will rule. Sometimes the jury has, they can suggest the amount of the type of punishment. Sometimes there are just written laws that say, if you do this, this is mandatory. You're going to do this. There are certain states that if you commit murder, first degree murder, you're going away for life. It don't even make sense. Once they find you guilty, they don't even have to go through sentencing because you're already going to be found. You're already going to have to do life. Unless they're going to put something additional on it, you're already going to do that. So there are just certain things that just are put into place that we are going to have to eat if we do not do what God wants us to do. And the reason why I threw God into that is because, remember, when we hold a job, we're ultimately not working for the company. The Word of God tells us that we're ultimately working for God. It is God who has blessed us with this position, and ultimately we answer to God. A lot of times we think that we're doing things and the boss doesn't see us, the manager, supervisor, owner, they don't see us, but God sees everything you do. And we have been charged to work as though that's the only boss, pretty much. I'm paraphrasing. That's the only boss. Because a lot of times, as long as the boss on earth doesn't see, we think we're getting away with everything. But if we keep in mind that the ultimate boss is the one we're working for, it'll change a lot of our work ethic. It'll change a lot of our mindset. You know, Shantice talks about it here, all the time, where, she went on a job and boy, she used to mouth those people off. And she used to come home and tell me, I say, and you still got a job? Are people still employing you? You could work for me. And even now she realizes, and she'll say it here, that God was the one who kept her on that job. Because by right, she should have been gone. The level of just sass. And I used to say to her, I said, you're not wrong. But that's your authority level. You don't have any business going up in there telling them what you gonna do, what you not gonna do. No, you're not gonna do this and you're not gonna do that. You're not gonna follow protocol because of this, and you're not gonna abide by the rule because of you don't own the company. That's the only time you can say what you gonna do and what you're not gonna do. And even then, I keep telling people, even then, you have to answer. There's the Department of Labor, there's federal laws, there's city laws, there's state laws, there's county laws that really talk about how you treat employees. Yeah, it gets that detailed. There's not only big laws, there's little laws that are in place for the employee. So even as an owner, you can't do what you want to do. So we have to keep in mind that ultimately we are working for God. He is the only one who has to say as to whether we even get that job or not, whether we keep that job or not. And we always need to keep in mind that that's my authority. No matter what we do in life, we have to answer. And here, she's going to have to answer. Now, whether it's answering that she doesn't have a job only, or whether she's going to have to answer to some criminal, authority, law, civil law, or, when I say civil, I don't mean money, but just law, legal. She has possession of drugs. And again, drugs in a school. She gonna eat that one. So when we do stuff, keep in mind the consequences. I just can't seem to push that enough. We can't live lawlessly. We can't live lawlessly. Always remember that there are laws. No matter, people say, I don't want to pay no rent because I don't want to deal with a landlord. Let me tell you something. I own a home, and they could actually come in here and tell me, you can't have that, you can't have this, you got to take that off, you got to take that. Yes, because legally, there are certain things you can't even do in your own home. Yeah, we pay the mortgage and we pay taxes and we pay for insurance, but we can't do what we want to do. We can't go outside. They make us pay for stuff on the concrete, but yet there's certain things we can't do. So there's always laws all around. All around. And here's what I say. If you can't abide by man's law, good luck on God's law. Because a lot of things that man says we can do, the Lord has already spoken against it. And it's those fine things. This is when you look at the fine print, you realize, hey, don't. God says no. God says, I don't want you doing that. Period. You shouldn't be doing that. This world is being run by the prince of the world. God has given him a certain level of control. Oh, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff that the world says we can do that God does not want us to do. So let's live by those laws and make sure we keep God in mind in the front of us at all times. You've been watching It's Due Time with Pastor Steph. Join us Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. where we discuss matters of the heart, mind, and spirit. as you go through your day. Be sure to set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. They will only serve as a distraction. Remember, prayer changes things. It's Pastor Steph signing off, and I want to thank my Due Time crew for always coming through big time. Thank you for hanging out with us and helping us do what we do. Please do not miss this opportunity to accept Christ as your personal Savior right now. Please do not miss the opportunity to strengthen that relationship with the Lord right now, because later is not promised to any of us. Until tomorrow, God spares where's Let's Talk About It Tuesday Church Folk Day. Until then, I love